Good evening to you and welcome to Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi. Good to have you on the Monday edition of ANN7 Prime, and this is our top story. Development charity organization OXFAM has called for action amid growing a gap between the rich and poor. OXFAM launched a new report as the World Economic Forum is being held in Davos, Switzerland. Our reporter Kulofelo Sejajile has more.
People won't like it. A lot of financial advisors...
Only 42 people hold as much wealth as the 3.7 billion who make up the poorest half of the world's population. Oxfam's shocking finding reveals an ever-widening gap between the rich and poor.
The income gaps, inequality has risen globally for a number of reasons. Chief among those is the way in which we have allowed, the rules of the economy to be dictated largely by the ones who are already privileged.
Comparing executive and workers' salaries highlights the chronic wage disparity in South Africa. Employees reiterate that working conditions and pay continue to be unfavorable.
I was dismissed for protecting the workers. I was designated to work at Liqua. When I get there, I found that the workers are working under a severe and unhealthy situation, environment where there's a lot of mosquito. When I reported that to management on that shift, I was told that I know too much. Those mosquitoes, they've been there for years.
Okay, what happened with the workers at Shoprite in Cape Town, Pelican Park? We named them the Shoprite 8. 7 of them were arrested on the 11th of August last year for accepting tips from customers. They were handcuffed in the shop for 4 hours in full view of some customers and their colleagues until the police arrived to arrest them.
Ama-issues esiwatholayo kakhulu ukuthi abasebenzi bafuna ukuthi babe permanent kuma-client company. We assist them nge-Section 198 cases, but mainly we assist them futhi nge-education ukuthi they must know their rights.
Oxfam believes a standardized minimum wage in South Africa can help address the economic inequalities.
Inequality and poverty remain the global challenges of our time, and not only because of the ethical need to address these, but because the global economy actually needs to have a large increase in spending.
Oxfam remains hopeful that world leaders will heed the challenges of inequality as the World Economic Forum unfolds. The economic disparities in South Africa are amongst the highest in the world. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening every year. And with the World Economic Forum currently underway in Davos, one hopes that sustainable solutions will emanate from that gathering. For ANN7, Kulofelo Sejajile, Johannesburg.
And on the debate this evening, we ask what more can South Africa's billionaires or the rich do for the poor? And should the government be considering a tax for the rich to bridge the income divide? You're most welcome to give us a call. The lines are open on 011-203-5120, 011-203-5120. We're joined via Skype by Leon Lowe, Executive Director of Free Market Foundation, and Volsher Khetwane is National Black Business Caucus CEO, and Kenny Gunene, businessman, joins us on the phone line. Good evening to all our guests, and thanks so much for joining us. Leon Lowe, especially from the free market, we saw some criticism leveled at the Oxfam report, saying that they misrepresented some statistics from the Swiss bank on the data of the wealth. What do you think the debate should be focusing on? Is it more the income levels of the poor rising, or rather the more equal distribution of wealth?
Yes, thanks for raising that, because there are very different issues involved here. Firstly, the Oxfam numbers are what I call Oxscam. They're a lot of nonsense on an unbelievable scale. The very Credit Suisse bank they cite says that there is $300 trillion of wealth in the world, and the 10 wealthiest people have 610 billion. Now, just to understand that is 1/500th or 0.002%. So what they say about the wealth owned by the few rich is simply a lie. It is nonsense and a fraud. And I would like them to challenge me on that because I would like to take this to court.
But how do you explain the growing inequality and, of course, the gluttonous wealth that we see from only a percentage of the world population?
We must understand the following. Firstly, wealth has been created on the planet on an unimaginable, unprecedented scale. Some of us are old enough to remember when starvation was common and the average TV program like this would show starving people. That has virtually vanished. There's been an 80% reduction in poverty as defined by the United Nations in less than 30 years. It is quite astonishing. OXFAM is obsessed with rich people, unconcerned about poor people. If it were concerned about poor people, it would take an interest in where over 1 billion human beings have raised their living standards unbelievably to the point where Credit Suisse, the very bank they quote, says that 1/4 of the world's population has risen into the middle class. In other words, the very source they quote, they ignore and misrepresent in order to create the scam to the effect that they need more money because they're a charity caring for the poor. They are obsessed with the rich to a point actually which I think is some kind of weird mental illness.
All right, Leon, just stay on the line with us. I beg your pardon. We have to take callers as well. We'll come to you, Kenny Gunene. Levi in Mpumalanga, good evening to you and thanks for joining us. What's your comment or question?
Yes, ma'am. I feel the rich must do more to alleviate poverty. And another thing, I think taxing them more, it will be unfair. But if we can control the minerals that are going out of the country, if they can leave half of the tax they are getting from our minerals, then that will be a good thing.
All right, suggestion well taken, Levi. Thank you so much for your time. Mr. Gunene, your view in what we can do, particularly when it comes to the systemic problem that we've seen, the sophistication, or rather the very advanced economic, microeconomic forums that we have vis-a-vis the fair taxation processes. What do you think ought to happen in ensuring that 99% at least of the population gets the focus and not the privileged few?
Thank you, CBS, for having me. I think it's fair to say that obviously the rich are not doing enough. But then when you talk about the rich, you then say how many black South Africans are in that space, especially the billionaires. You can only count 2 or 3 or 4. So government also, remember, it's government's responsibility to make sure that the lives of people are improved. And when you look at our government, it's so afraid of white capital, of those who are billionaires. They massage them, they manage them, and they do as they please. Instead, they take money out of this country and they go and deal with poverty in the countries where they come from, where government makes sure that there are mechanisms in place to take care of the poor. Let me give you an example. In Norway, a taxi driver gets every month, a domestic worker gets every month something from the minerals that are mined in Norway. Everyone gets paid their own share of the minerals. Okay, it's a small country, but this too can happen in this country, but government refuses to impose measures that can be able to force these big companies and these rich individuals to change the lives of people. I grew up in the goldfield in Odendalsrus and Welcome. And you look at an area called Las Vegas in Tabo. During apartheid, mines built houses for people that they worked for. You look at Allen Ridge. Allen Ridge is a town that was built from monies of the mining companies. But when the ANC government took over, they then started saying that they are losing money, they are not making money, and they started doing nothing. Mines built hostels. Mines owned buses that transported those who were working at the mines. So yes, they can do more. You look at our pension fund institution. whereby you look at ShopRite. ShopRite is said to be funded by PIC, which holds pensions of South Africans. And once it's funded, ShopRite comes and sells to the very same people that have funded them at exorbitant prices. And government turns a black eye on these things when it is told about them. So before we can even talk about billionaires, we need to say government needs to have balls and it needs to take radical decisions. Then you will see billionaires coming to the party.
All right, can you just stay on the line? Avoshia Gekwane is in the studio as well. Just your view in how we dismantle, especially the tax havens and the current economic environment that seems to perpetuate the divide between rich and poor. Are you of the view that indeed we need to have higher mineral taxes, for example, or even a rich tax?
Yes, but first of all, I think as Africa, we are funding a lot of so-called first world countries because our resources are what funding those places, right? So your Australias, America, and all these other so-called big economies, they are feeding off Africa. So here in Africa, we are failing, just like what Kenny was just saying, we are failing to hit a super tax on the mining. These are our minerals. They belong to the citizens of South Africa. Anglo's mining, Exxaro's mining, they're pulling out all this money and they're all foreign companies. None of them belong to South Africa. They pull this money out and send it to those economies so those economies can live lavish lifestyles at our expense. We are the only country in the world that's got platinum. We've got 83% of the world's platinum globally. But we fail to produce catalytic converters, which is the most used, the most manufactured product with that mineral. We fail to produce that and sell it. Should we close our gates, us in Zimbabwe, and say we're not producing any more platinum, what's going to happen to the auto industry? That very auto industry cannot give jobs here, cannot reinvest here, cannot produce the products here locally. So we are failing to say to mining companies, look, you are mining our mineral. And the communities, I said this last time when I was told by the gentleman there that I was delusional. Now when OXFAM comes out, he says that it's an utter nonsense, that it's not right, that all this, because he's part of white monopoly capital and that's what he protects. We need to deal with our minerals. Our minerals have to feed our communities, and we have to take a decisive action and stop, pussyfooting around the issue.
Leon Lowe, your view in that respect, as we're all trying to find an economy that will benefit the majority and not the privileged few, in terms of how policy reform can affect this particular change that we want in either taxation or beneficiation, what is the approach going forward?
Yes, well, what you need to do is really very simple, and it's not rocket science. You look around the world and you say, where in the world have the living standards of the poor risen the fastest and the most? And the answer is countries like Mauritius, India and China. And how has that been achieved? It's by liberalizing the economies, by privatizing and deregulating. That is the formula that always works. The opposite always fails, always and everywhere, regardless of where it is in the world. So what we must do is we must emulate the countries where the poor do well. And to say that I represent white monopoly capital, I wish it were true. My actual daily work is with shanties and squatters and hawkers. And those are the people we represent, small and informal businesses. And those are the people who are stifled and suppressed by regulations and controls which suit the rich, because the rich have the ability to employ the lawyers and accountants to deal with a over-regulated economy. So
all right, let's talk about privatization, Leon, in the interest of time, in that the countries that you've cited are very much biased towards indigenization or their level of BEE to a point where it benefits the majority of the indigenous people. In other words, you can't privatize a company in China and be 100% owner, or even majority for that matter. That hasn't necessarily worked or been effective in South Africa.
Well, it actually, no, on the contrary. China, 80% of its capital formation is in what's called the special economic zones. They are the freest economies on earth. Everything in them is privately owned. Anyone in the world can invest there, move capital and skills and human resources in and out freely. And that is where China's economic success has happened, which is why we in South Africa now have a special economic zone law. we want to copy what China did, and that is exactly what we should do. It is the way Mauritius has done it, the way India is doing it, and we should do exactly what China has done, which is to invite the world's investors in and to say, if you come here, you will have tax holidays, you'll pay low taxes, you'll be subjected to virtually zero regulation, and 1 billion human beings have risen from poverty. Now, why does that not interest Oxfam? Why does Oxfam ignore the poor? The poor want to move from the socialist regulated economies to the free market economies. They know that the best place to be poor is where the world's richest people are. Oxfam, just let me point out, they said a year ago there were 8 people owned half of the world's wealth. Now they say 30 people do. They did complain because there were fewer and fewer people owning all the wealth. Now they complain because more and more people are wealthy. We should celebrate the fact that more people are becoming wealthy, including the poor, or actually especially the poor on the planet. And we in South Africa can solve our problem by following the success formula of where poor people become rich.
All right, so stay with us, please, Leon. The number is to dial 011-203-5120, 011-203-5120. What can be done to bridge the gap between the rich and poor? Kenigunene, in your view, I mean, the low-hanging fruit would be, for example, interventions such as the minimum wage, of which we've seen a lot of backlash, you know, especially with domestic workers and employers arguing that this would lead to greater job losses because they simply cannot afford it. Is it because we are almost intellectualizing the debate around poor and the rich as opposed to looking at measures that can work?
I think Barack Obama captured it very well when he was the president of the U.S., when he said the issue of minimum wage must be addressed. Because when people earn minimum wage and they earn a living wage, the economy of the country gets boosted because people spend more, businesses grow, therefore the country survives economically. But if you only have a few who are well off and the majority that is not able to live, then you are going to have a weak economy. So it affects the economy negatively. That was Barack Obama in the United States putting that argument to the world and to American businessmen. So if Obama can say it in the U.S., why can't it work here in South Africa? The ANC, unfortunately, has even failed us worse because now they have elected a president who is white, covered in black paint, who is now going to make sure that the white monopoly capital interests are well protected. And we are going to hear rhetoric, we are going to hear commissions and conferences on the implementation of radical economic transformation, which would actually address the issues that we are raising now. We will never see it happening under his leadership. The ANC has failed us. But I think also it speaks to Ubuntu of business people. And that is why, Cindy, I help a lot. In my communities, they know there's children that I've taken to school, to universities that I don't even know. I do the bit that I can. I bury people, I build houses for people, and I don't make noise. That is why I've decided to form a foundation that is going to do these things on a larger scale, on a bigger scale, on a visible scale, because people say we are doing nothing. I am not going to organize free festivals for young people to come and drink and celebrate. I think we need to change the lives of our people positively. And unfortunately, we, the ones who have benefited, must be able to say, yes, we have lived those lives of champagnes and everything. God has still blessed us, but let us go into our communities
and be a blessing to them as well. Can you please stay on the line? Tulane, thanks for your patience, calling us from Mbombela. Good evening to you. Hi, Tulane.
Thank you, Cindy, for taking my call.
Yes, sir. What's your comment or question?
I agree with Kenigunene. I'm not surprised about this white guy saying all that thing. That's why bakhuluma njalo. Impilo yethu imatima kabi. That's why nomlungu lo lapho akakhoni ukuvelana nebantu abahluphekile, akakhoni ude shem, uthi conscious kahle kahle. the white monopoly capital, they don't care about people of South Africa. They just came to South Africa, make the economy of South Africa and invest outside South Africa. That's why we will remain in poor.
So, Tulani?
I think ANC must stand up, implement the policy of ANC. If they don't do that, 2019, so they will lose the election.
All right, Tulane from Mbombela, thank you so much. Let's deal with issues of inequality when it comes to practical interventions that can be done. Number one, the wage gap, as we've seen from the employment equality reports and statistics South Africa, that there is still a wage disparity. As much as we're enjoying an increase in the black middle class, for example, but there's also the working poor, those that earn too little to be able to even survive. Leon, we'll come to you, but first of all, share your view on how that can be almost implemented immediately.
As a NBBC SABIC, we believe there are two ways to intervene in this issue. One is that very wage gap. 3,500 for a person to live is not a living wage. Those people who agreed on it themselves could not live on it. So I don't know why they bother. What we should have, rather than having a minimum wage, we should have an award wage, which is the Australian system. What they use in Australia is an award wage, which means whatever your discipline of work, there's a rate that a company must pay as a minimum on that discipline. That's an award wage, and it's always calculated according to a living standard. Secondly is business. Where we focus is business. We believe that the only way to help change the lives of our people for the better is to have inter-Africa trade, is to stop asking on bended knee for some white company to give us access to our own market. We should build our own markets. That's one of the reasons we're running this NATAN, which is together with the Nigerian government. We're going to be running it here in April, where we show opportunities. This is mining, agriculture, and tourism in Durban. And this is where we're going to give opportunities to our businesses to be able to work with Nigerians. Because here in South Africa, when we talk to white monopoly capital, when we talk to all these big mining houses, like I said last week, this is a good thing that OXFAM has come up with this, because I said this last week, that they have such a big book that they show you that we've been doing X, Y, and Z. Right now, they announced yesterday, Anglo, that they gave 175 million to a community in Mogalakwena. The very community that was there fighting for Anglo, who's blasting 400 meters away from a community and injured a child in that school. Okay? We went there and we fought there, and Anglo now says they've given 175 to them. I called the community leaders there. They haven't seen any money. The money
we'll follow up on that, Share. Just brief details on the conference that you'll be holding, the Inter-Africa Trade,
yes,
and how people can participate.
Well, how people will be able to participate here is that the Nigerian government is sending premiers here. So, well, they call them governors there, but in our country, we would call them premiers of a province. And also 5 ministers will be coming here.
Okay, website or contact details?
You can go to nbbc.npc.org, and you can find out more about this. And you can also go to NATAN info. The email is info@maton.com.ng, and you can also go to www.maton.com.ng.
Okay. All right, we'll have those details on our social media platforms as well. Very briefly, Leon, to people that are out in the periphery, not economically participating, not based on lack of talent or even initiative. I mean, what do we say when South Africa is still known as the world's most unequal society in light of what we've seen in terms of the wealthier getting richer?
Yes, this is really disgraceful that we should have the poor being kept as poor as they are. Let me just point out that anyone who's for the minimum wage is for keeping the 40% of South Africans who are unemployed, virtually all black South Africans. 60% of young black women are unemployed. And the minimum wage basically says to them they are not allowed to get a job. Now, this
All right, we lost Leon there, but that's all the time we have, gentlemen. Thanks indeed. We'll pick up this discussion, I'm sure, in days to come as well. In studio, we're joined by Voltaire Khakane. He is the CEO of the Black Business Caucus, and Leon Lowe, Executive Director of the Free Market Foundation. Kenny Kunene, a businessman, joining us on the phone line. Thanks for your time and for the calls as well. We'll take a break and we'll be back with the latest update on news and sport.